Hello and welcome back to Sharing a Chapter a Day. This is Do, Ra, me, and today I will be reading Chapter 112 of Engagement in Peril by Dara, Odoe, Sup. Chapter 112 is titled Earning My Caduceus. I thought Shinshin and I would never meet again since our last departure from the San Diego airport when we parted ways in different directions after we graduated from basics in late September of 1995. Shinshin was going to Coronado Island, and I was going to Balboa at the Naval Medical Center for my hospital corpsman A school. Shinshin was going through another 7 months of rigorous training at Buds to become a Navy SEAL of some sort, while I was going to become a Navy corpsman. And yet, I ended up becoming a combat corpsman after all my schoolings and trainings was done after basics, hospital A school, and field medical service school. I attended hospital corpsman A school at the Naval School of Health Sciences in San Diego, California. The school and command was situated right next to the famous massive Balboa Park that the San Diego Zoo resides in, only minutes away from my barracks and command then, where I often go to and walk about during my spare and time off from classes and military duties. Hassan and I fortunately had orders to San Diego for Hospital Corpsman A School together, and soon after we graduated from boot camp, we left for San Diego together and arrived to our new command that Thursday evening. We checked ourselves in at the schoolhouse quarterdeck and were issued linens and pillows and placed in an open bay living quarters on the fourth floor, 4B, of the students' residential building then. It was here, at the open bay living quarter, that we met our fellow and future male classmates. After introducing ourselves to several newly graduate recruits like ourselves, we settled in and chose our bunks. Once again, Misha and I shared the bunk bed. We chose the third two-man bunk bed from the open bay front entrance, swinging metal doors. The rack this time was different. It had bootlocker drawers attached underneath, and it was also had a much larger metal dresser for all of our uniform and necessities. We unpacked, leaned back, and took a long, relaxing breath and just eased our worn body to relax for the moment. Fortunately for all of us who had checked into the new duty station early, during that time we had been given the weekend off, so we all scattered all about town. Some left to go visit relatives, and some stayed behind and went about around town, boozing, getting high, getting sexed up, fucking their bodies and minding out, fucking their bodies and minds out, and sightseeing of sort before we began our schooling for the next 5+ months there at the Naval School of Health Sciences. As for myself, I did the only thing I knew how, and at that moment, I had missed my family. It has been ages since I saw them last, so I decided to call my sister and my mom up in Long Beach, California. I told them where I was and that I wanted to come home for the weekend. About 4 hours later, they came down to San Diego to pick me up for the weekend. The drive from Long Beach to San Diego took about 3.5 hours or so, depending on traffic. It was worth the drive when you really miss your family so much then, and wanted to see them that bad. After several months of not seeing my family, it was really terrific being able to see my mom and family again, even if it's only for a few days. While back in Long Beach, I stayed home and hung out with my siblings and helped my mom with her sewing and such around the house. I went with her to the sewing factory to greet and meet her co-workers and friends. Mom's eyes seemed to glow as she introduced me to them. One by one, I greeted them in a Cambodian customary bows and gesture. They replied with giving me blessings and well wishes. Some were really interested what I had been through all at basic, and some wished that their kids would get out of the house and join the armed services too. So they told me as we discussed my training and experiences at basics. Once back in Long Beach, I didn't really do anything much except sit around the house. Mom took us to eat at an Asian restaurant several times. I just wanted to be close to my family. I wanted to absorb their love and joy for the moment. I knew I needed eventually as I went through my A school and medical training. I didn't bother calling up benevolence then. I didn't have I didn't have too much anyway. I didn't have too much time anyways to hang out with anyone then. On that Sunday evening, my mom and my sister drove me back to San Diego and dropped me off at the BEQ building where I was living while going through A school then. I hugged them goodbyes and wished them well and told them that I would call them whenever I had the chance to. And once in my barrack, I readied myself for school the next day as I prepared my uniforms and paperwork for the next day instruction and introductions. I ironed my working blues and dress blues, folded my neckerchief accordingly, and helped other shipmates who needed help in that matter. After we all slumber, well, most of us slumber for a good night's rest, anticipating what was to come the next day on our first day of A school. Before shutting my eyes and crashing to sleep, I took a small prayer before sleeping that night, thanking the Lord for the breath that He gave me and for allowing me to go on each day, and asking Him to watch over my mother, sibling, friends, especially Shinshin, who was going through something that was really, really tough. So I paid extra attention to praying for him. So going back to my Christian roots, I smiled and sought God's assistance then. This is what I had to say. Dear Lord, I seem to have gained some trust in you since my days during basic, so I'm asking you, please look out for my friend Shinshin, Shinshin Nagami, at Bud's in Coronado there. He's going through some hard shit right now, and you know he adores you. He truly does. He has faith in you, and I do too. So it shouldn't be any trouble for you to find him. Just look after him and take care of him for me, okay? Thanks, as I doze off to sleep. Our first day consisted of getting assigned a company and classroom. We met with our classroom commanders and advisor. We were then given instructions on rules and policy, schedules and dress codes, and code of conduct amongst peers and sexes. We were then introduced ourselves individually, telling our shipmate where we came from, how old we were, and what we expect to get out of this hospital A school. Of course, we all mentioned that we all hope to get through the A school without being sent back or sent to the fleet. Our classes started several days later within the first week of arriving there. My class and company roster started off with about 53 candidates, but as the weeks and months went on, the number trickled down to a little more than half. My class population comprised of about half female and half male. We all came from various factions of the world, mainly from the States, but we had a few who were from the Philippines and Guam. We all were of different races, religion, and creed, but we all pretty much got along. Of course, we had all had our differences and disagreement as well, but everyone acted civilized for the most part, so it seemed. For most, I can personally say it wasn't like that at all. There were racists and asshole amongst us all. There were racists and asshole among us all then at that naval A school. The first week of A school was introductory, mainly about rules and regulation for the schoolhouse and what the command expected of us in and off base. We started off learning about basic medical care and techniques like emergency life-saving procedure, CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, anatomy of the human body and its function, also about medication, its effects and its dosage, and how to take care and treat patients who are bedridden and ill. Often during class lecture and instructions, I would wander off and thought about my good friend Shinshin. I wondered how he was and what he was doing, hoping that he was well and healthy in all that he was going through. I miss him that much then. Shinshin was constantly on my mind and in my hearts. We had 14 exams through our first five plus months of stint there at the A school. 12 hands-on procedure and demonstrations and training, which you must pass to graduate and move on with the class. I learned a lot then about the human anatomy and its makeup. Successfully, I managed to pass every test on the first try. No matter how hard or how mundane it may be, I wasn't striving to be the best in the class, but I never felt anything once there. It just wasn't me. Thinking of Shinshin and all that shit he had been through gave me the confidence and integrity that got me through it all. He was there with me in spirit and in mind. Sometime our instructor, who were already medical personnel working for the Navy, would stage accidents and emergency incident, and we would go and we get tested on what to do during that traumatic and chaotic times. We were examined on whom to call and how to stay calm throughout the whole ordeal, or no matter how horrific the situation may be. Our focus, skills, and medical procedures Memories were being tested on a daily basis then. We learned to give shots, how to stitch a torn or ruptured skin, to place a catheter in a male and a female life-size human dummy, to draw blood from one another, and how to give medication, whether it may be oral, anal, rectal, or subcutaneous. Notice I mentioned anal rectal twice? You see what I mean later on. Hospital A School at the Naval School of Health Sciences lasted for 15 long months. I'm sorry, lasted for 15 long, mind-boggling weeks, where we learned and gained more knowledge from our time there. With our mind and knowledge of medical procedure embedded in us, most of us were confident enough to go out on our own to assist people in need of medical care in the real world. And it helped. We had to use what we learned during some hectic events out in town when we were out and about, while half of our remaining class, with half of our remaining class, with half of our remaining class, we graduated in mid-February of 1996. While at A school on several occasions, Tran, an older Vietnamese guy who barely spoke a word of English, and a couple of the other guys and myself go to Vieja, an Indian casino up in Alpine in San Diego County, where we would carpool up there and play Indian blackjack, slot machine, pag out, and bingo. On some occasion, some of us were lucky enough to win something to take back to the base. Like I was on out looking for an easy assay. Still, I thought about Shinshin and wondered what he was up to, hoping that he was well and doing and going through his trial smoothly. One night, we all decided to pull some money and put the money together and let Tran play with our money. And we ended up winning about 300 bucks on the pag out table, where each of us got 60 bucks when we split the winnings. We had to be careful about letting our advisor know about our outings and at the casinos. They frowned on the sort of things, and while we were students at the base, we had to abide by some rules and policies for students of the command. But they eventually found out about our outside extracurricular activity because someone in our company had bitched and snitched about our outings and winning to them then. As a result of our disobedience, we were given some minor reprimand and restriction to stay on base, while we were constantly being checked up by the officer of the day about our crew whereabout. During A school, people were having problems left and right. Most of us had trouble with the classes and lessons. Some kept failing written exams and hand-on procedure. I had very few problems. My only concern there was the well-being of Shinshin, who was only minutes away by bus or taxi down in Coronado Island. Differently for Hassan, he began to have relation problem with his girlfriend, who resided in San Diego, and it eventually led him into trouble with our advisors in the command. Hassan was angry and confused because his girlfriend had recently dumped him for no particular reason, and he was stressed out from the breakup. Through all his frustration and yearning, Hassan had told our advisor that he had taken drugs to relieve his mini tension, illegal drugs. He was then booted from A school and assigned working crew duty. So right away they placed him on the base restriction and medical holding, where he was confined to the base and its facility. His driving and other privileges were taken away, and he wasn't allowed to participate in any off-base activity with or without the class. Months later, after my graduation from Hospital A school, and having earned my Caduceus, I learned that Hassan was eventually kicked out of the Navy and sent home on a psychiatric evaluation for his drugs and emotional problem. I wish Misha Hassan well in his future endeavors. Farewell, my friend. Godspeed. Thank you for listening. This is the end of chapter 112. Be on the lookout for chapter 113, titled Graduates Night Out. This is Do, Ra, me, and I'll see you later. Thank you.